G'day, Tony. How you doing? It's raining again here, mate. Unbelievable. Well, I heard WA is actually opening up their borders to South Australia, Northern Territory, Tasmania, but not the rest. Hello, old gringo. But Victoria, I think, has gone about 15 days without any cases, so that wouldn't be too far away being on our opening list as well. Not sure about New South Wales. Pretty sure the criteria is 14 days without a case. So what's been happening in your world, old gringo? Yeah, I have trouble on the phone typing. I got it on the phone. It auto corrects for me. Doesn't say what I actually writ. It's just weird, old gringo. You know my opinion, he's the worst president America's ever had. He's now turning out to be the most destructive. There's so many implications in not accepting transfer of information, power, etc., etc. And I'm pretty sure, this is what I think, old gringo, some of the senior Republicans will stand up shortly and say, enough is enough. We're putting our country in a security risk. I mean that sincerely. He is putting the US in a security risk. If you go back to 2000, there was the controversy of Florida, which in the end was 500 votes, and George W. Bush was awarded the victory. That's fine, but that took 37 days. Remember the year, 2000. They believed the delay in transferring of information and power made America vulnerable for 2001. And we know what happened on 9/11. I'm not saying that maybe those 37 days were the cause, but they certainly could have been maybe prevented. So are we going to look at that again? The world is in total turmoil. The denial of this virus in the US is just now, unfortunately, going to crush the country. There is no comeback from this, old gringo, as far as the economy. People think, no, we'll ride through this. They will not. Unless you fix the health of a nation, the wealth will disappear. I think every day now I'm hearing staggering, I think it was nearly 150,000, which even at 2% death rate, there's another 3,000 people that will eventually die when the lag catches up, which is a 9/11 in one day. It's a terrible thing to even perceive that in the coming weeks, figures of 3,000 dead in a day. What does it take for America to realise that around the world, countries have been successful listening to science? Every state in my country and the federal government have been led by chief scientific health officers. They decide what happens. And I'm not kidding you, that's how it works. We have it under control. Victoria, which had a spike from 700 cases down to 0, and it's been 15 days since they had a case in Victoria. There is a method that works based on scientific evidence. Yeah, look, Rupert Murdoch's got his hand up the clacker of many media outlets, let's be honest. Rupert Murdoch is very right-wing. Sadly, Rupert Murdoch used to be an Australian. He's now an American, so he is your problem. And the division in the country is staggering. The partisan anger has risen to such an extent, even when Biden, and he will become president, and he will enforce mandatory masks, states will fire up. What will happen in these states that don't do mandatory masks is the death toll will climb inexorably higher. And then they'll look at other states who are following a scientific plan and think, well, not many people are dying there, and not many people are dying there, and we don't have a mandatory mask, and lots of us are dying. Perhaps we have to listen to the scientists. It's terrible in Texas. They've just passed 1 million. California's just passed 1 million. It staggers Australian because our total death toll is like 907. And that was mainly the second spike in Victoria of well over 800. We listened to the scientists and they told us a plan, a painful plan, and also a stressful plan, but it worked. It just doesn't make any sense. Australians are just as pragmatic as Americans. Don't ever think otherwise. But we listen and we think this is a very deadly threat. And at the moment, your country is in limbo. Do you remember the last speech on the debate by the previous President Trump, who said, we are definitely round in the corner, we've got this under control. And in that very week, the chief scientific, whoever this person is, officer of the White House, says one of the many things that Trump legacy will be remembered for is ending the virus. It wasn't me that just heard that, was it? Yeah, look, I've got Republican friends who just say it's ridiculous. You lost. I didn't want you to lose, say Republicans. But you lost. Get over it. Polish your ego and fuck off. It's reaching a point of a national security issue. I'm not kidding you when I say that. It really is. Fundamentally undermining the security of the United States is the primary objective of a president, to protect it, not the reverse. One of the things I've analysed so far in the results of the election in the US is that there's still a very strong conservative base. There's no question. I think there always will be. And some of the amazing statistics, you know that Trump's asking for the presidential recount. He's not asking for the legislative recount, the Senate recount. He's not asking for, just for him, it's just a presidential recount. Well, overall, the Republicans gained seats in the lower house, as we call it here. And they probably will still maintain the power in the Senate. So what did Americans vote for? They voted for conservatism in a bigger way than the last election. But at the very top of the box where it said president, they ticked Joe Biden. That tells me a lot. it'll be exacerbated if this idiot doesn't concede and protect America, because every day that passes, he makes America more vulnerable. He is a national security threat. Okay, I've said it. Your ex-president is a national security threat. It's the ploy of an authoritarian government denying the result, looking at every possibility to reverse it at all costs, and in fact at all costs of American lives. Yeah, you could be right there, Punk, but I have a feeling there's an intervention coming in from an angle he hasn't thought of, and that is the Republican Party. There is the Democratic Party, there is the Republican Party, and then there is Trump. There are three different identities. And the Republican Party, if it wants to survive over the next 10 to 20 years, and I mean this seriously, they're the ones that have to stand up now and say, enough is enough. Anyway, that's my political speech. And on the top of the box, when you go into the ballot, type cease to freedoms, get stuffed. G'day, biker. I just feel that the only thing Trump is really destroying, other than the security of the nation, is the Republican Party. He's destroying it. The two runoff elections for the Senate in Georgia, he's doing irreparable damage to their chances. One is certain to get in, and that's a Democrat. The other one fighting against Purdue, maybe not based on today, but if these days turns into weeks, the people in Georgia will certainly be heard. And then you could have a 50-50 Senate, with of course Kamala Harris being the deciding vote in the Senate, if required. So he is the best thing the Democrats could have for the two runoff Senate races in Georgia at the moment, Mr. Trump, that's how he shall be addressed. And he's doing irreparable damage to the Republicans. It's not the GOP anymore, as I said, at all. There's not a hint of Reaganism left. The division in America looks like, I said this weeks and months ago, it looks like the 1950s again in America. God forbid Americans voted Barack Obama into office. Is this the payback that the country is getting? There's probably more than that, I suppose, Gringo. I understand what you're saying. But collectively, you only have blue and red to vote for, which I think is crazy, myself. There's left and right wing in all parties. And I say this to this day, even though he made mistakes and he owned up for them, Ronald Reagan was a very influencing person as far as stabilising the country, bringing down the Berlin Wall. Didn't like his association with Margaret Thatcher, so I thought she was a dictator. You know, even when Biden gets in, Bernie Sanders is not going to get his way, swinging way to the left. He may get his $15 an hour national wage, which I think would be fantastic. I still think it's way too low, but that $15 an hour may happen for a lot of good people. And the agenda that Biden's running on will be difficult to implement if the Republicans control the Senate again. There'll be some things that get pushed through, other than the COVID being the number one priority. There's no doubt in my mind Americans will receive a very large cheque in the mail around about the end of February. And some of them need it more than ever. I thought President Obama was an excellent president, very diplomatic, firm where he needed to be, and gentle where he also needed to be. But you can't run a president for 40 years. Unfortunately, that's called a dictatorship. And I've argued for years, we don't do it in this country. We may give a tip in a restaurant, but it's not normal. It's a rarity. For a waitress or whoever gives service, to rely on the income being based on people's generosity is silly. It's wrong. The reality is people should get paid more, and in the end they'll spend more. It goes around what comes around. Well, your last president, who's now sitting in a room covered in orange makeup, more likely will be matching that colour with the jumpsuit by about July. I cannot see him getting out of the hornet nest of litigation coming his way. He's doing all this litigation, but what he's doing at the moment, I'm sure all of you realise, he's fundraising. Unequivocally fundraising for his own pocket and his own debts, I guess. Yeah, no one can live on $7 an hour. Some people are still getting paid less than that in different states and relying on tips. Well, it'll be at the instigance of him being dragged out under the proviso of Republicans and men from the Pentagon and Secret Service. It may happen well before January 20 if the country is under threat, because information regarding the security of the country is a priority. Now, I know how the Constitution works, but believe me, the Pentagon works on protecting the nation above. It's not a separate state in its power, the Pentagon. But with the right initiative, they would remove him along with the Secret Service prior to January the 20th if it became dire national security threat. That's the Pentagon's job. It's terrible. Yeah, it's the same. We had a friend in Arkansas. She was getting $2 an hour a couple of years ago, and she was getting by on tips. But she hated it. Well, yeah, I don't think the guillotine is a good enough punishment. I think just living another 20 years with ridicule. No one around the planet likes him. I hate to tell people who voted for him in America. He wouldn't have got votes in Australia. We'd just laughed at him. We'd have mocked him because he's very mockable. He wouldn't have survived in Canada. They mock him as well. Yeah, no, tips shouldn't be taxed. But let's forget tips. Let's just get a decent wage. Remember our friend in Arkansas? She didn't use the words directly, but she inferred it's like being a white slave. You get $2 an hour, and if someone's generous enough to throw you some extra tips, you dip your hat and say, "Thank you, sir." You shouldn't make people do that. They're working. Pay them to work. Anyway, I do believe, and I believe a lot sooner than many people, I believe within the next week the Republicans will move. If it becomes absurd, I believe the Pentagon and the Secret Service will be involved to protect the US. Oh, he'll love the prison Salisbury steaks. He'll just love them. Thick with gravy. Mmm. I think you find that his dismissal and replacement by his sycophants in the Pentagon have triggered alarms. There's talk of the head of the CIA being removed, the FBI being removed. These will trigger the mechanisms in the Pentagon to protect the nation. They'll see what's going on. I can see what's going on. I'm a long way away and I don't live there. I can see exactly what's going on. Manipulation of all levels of government to control a coup d'etat. But I think you'll see within the 7 days, Republicans stand up, say enough's enough. If he starts just firing people and pardoning criminals and doing stupid things, the Pentagon, Secret Service, and the Republicans will remove him before the 20th of January. It's your country, but it affects my country, so that's why I believe I have the right to express my opinion. I don't like the idea of America being vulnerable to attack on all levels due to security risks implemented by an egotistical, maniacal fool. She's sitting here, playing a game, old gringo.
Hello, everybody. I don't know who's in there. Who's in there? Who has graced your presence?
We have old gringo. We have Punk in Drublic, which I've always liked that name.
What is that?
Punk in Drublic, otherwise drunk in public reversed. Very funny. Also, Tony's been here, but I think he's off to bed shortly. I think we had Biker coming to say good day. He says, hello, beautiful mystic angels.
Good. Come back.
Hello, Scarlett. What are the security risks at present? Not handing over all the information to the people taking on the jobs in the future, denying them access to the last minute, which would put the state... Scarlett, I'll refresh what I said to old Gringo, because I do know a lot about politics in America. I've always followed politics. In 2000, do you remember when George W. Bush won because the Supreme Court said, no, you've definitely won 500 votes. So George W. Bush became the president in 2000. However, the delay of 37 days for that to occur, Scarlett, even though you can't pinpoint it with a needle, a lot of the experts in America said because of the attack in 2001, the lack of information provided to the transfer of power could have been the cause of lack of security knowledge at the time. So that's why it's a security risk and not having a smooth transfer of government. It's very simple. It's like if I suddenly get off an excavator, and you've never driven an excavator before, Scarlett, I hand you the keys and say, away you go. It should be smooth and seamless, because the priority for any government is to make sure that the country is safe. Oh no, you're not going to go down that line. You are not going to go down that line, Scarlett. What transfer of power? The President of the United States elect is Joe Biden, clearly. The Republicans are stepping up one by one to actually confirm that, Scarlett. If you believe for one moment that some miracle will be occurring, that Mr. Trump will be the next president, you are terribly misinformed. I have no problems with votes being counted. Unfortunately, recounts in every election I've ever seen usually swing no more than 500. I think the maximum was 1,400 votes. And some went to the actual person that had won anyway, not to the incumbent that lost. It's not the duty of the president to see that the election is legit. It's the system that sees that the election is legit. You don't put a president in power of counting votes. Oh, geez. This is Scarlett. She says, Seeds, I know Trump will remain our president via legal election. You heard it first from me, Scarlett. What a load of shit. So in very essence, you're saying, Scarlett, you're not conceding that Joe Biden won the election. Very clearly. State legislators have power over counts. They can be ordered by federal, and Supreme Court in the state can also order a recount. That's happening in Georgia. Let's say, for one miracle, Scarlett, that Georgia goes to Trump. Doesn't mean an iota, doesn't mean a thing. Let's say Arizona, that's been declared today, goes to Trump. Doesn't mean one iota. Joe Biden will still be president. I know in the years to come you will know that your statements you're making tonight were in error. You're clinging on to the last hope that this will come true. It won't. You show me clearly why America is divided, Scarlett. It's not an attack on you, it's an observation. You clearly show me that you're in the low percentage. There's probably 5% of Americans left that think the way you do. No more. Where's the voter fraud, Scarlett? Present it to me now. Don't send me a link. Don't tell me that this person said it. I've heard. Many people know. You are repeating the propaganda you're being fed. I repeat, 80% of Americans today agree that Joe Biden is the president-elect. 80%. A low percentage of around 5 will cross broken glass to say that's not the case. So you're only repeating what's been in the media. You're talking about the Dominion software for counting. You're now just repeating the propaganda, Scarlett. Illegal ballots. There's no illegal ballots that have been actually presented. Do you know what? There will be some. There will be some idiot that got his grandmother who died in 1840 to vote. That happens every election. But the safeguards in place run by the states of each individual state know that it's a very, very low percentage. Multiple ballot signed affidavits. Well, let's talk about one that happened just yesterday. 2-3 days ago, a guy said, I was there and I definitely saw them cheat. He's recanted his statement, admitted to the FBI that he lied because he wanted Mr. Trump to win. Okay? Let's see. It's 15-0 in state courts in regards to challenging. State judicials have said, no, why are you in front of me? Do you believe that? Here you go, Scarlett. This is one that you need to listen. This is from the actual prosecution litigation team for Mr. Trump. They put forward to a judge and said, we know all this is happening and that's happening. And he said, where's the evidence? The judge asked. And he said, well, you know, there's been voter fraud. And he said, okay, listen carefully. Now tell me again, what is the fraud that's occurred? The lawyer at the time realised he was stepping on very dangerous ground and said, as far as I know, there's been no fraud. That's the litigation lawyers for Mr. Trump in a court that said, well, where's the evidence? They couldn't provide it. And then when asked if it is fraud, because what happens if a lawyer, an attorney, goes to court and says there is fraud when there is not, he has committed a crime, a felony, Scarlett. That's why the lawyer said, no, I don't believe there's been any fraud. There's no talking to you, Scarlett. You've got this delusion that you're clinging on to the very remnants of the coattails of a failed dictator, and you will not do anything until he's dragged out. No, there is no substantial fraud. There will be fraud. Elections always have stupid people do stupid things. like dead grandmothers from 100 years ago voting. That happens. But don't you find it a bit strange, Scarlett? Give me the answer to this one if you would. The only prosecutions that are really going on litigation-wise in states of America are the 5 remaining states, and one in Michigan, some ridiculous claim. But anyway, tell me why that on the ballot, see, I know how ballot papers work. There's the local representative of the state, there's a Senate or 2 Senate members, maybe more. And then at the very top, there's a presidential box. Why is it that the Conservative Republican Party won more lower seats in this election, which was a surprise, but they did win more, and they're likely to remain control of the Senate again, which means there's still great conservative values in America, which is good. But it also tells you that when they tick the boxes, Scarlett, for the local representative in the state and the Senate members in the box, they tick the Republican ones. But then they ticked Biden for president. They're on the ballot, Scarlett. So people that of a Republican background had still voted Republican, except they wanted Mr. Trump out. And do you know what Mr. Trump's not asking the lawyers to litigate? He doesn't want those recounted in the lower and the Senate, just the presidential. That's what's happening. So the country is still conservative, but the Republicans who voted that way for Senate and state leaders don't want him as president. It wasn't the Democrats that threw Mr. Trump out, Scarlett. It was Republican voters who threw Donald Trump out. Hard to take, I know. How it works is that each state will ratify an election result, or if you like, certify an election result. That's how it works. States do that, not federal governments. Each state does that themselves. Some states have already done it. A recount, I have no problem with any recount in any of these states that are being challenged, because there is no chance in hell that the figures will change by more than 500 to 2,000 votes. And that won't help anyone. This has also been an attack on good, normal men and women in America. Those working at the polls, counting, people securing the doors, making sure everything runs smoothly. They're all being attacked as if they are criminals. Well, I can tell you categorically, Scarlett, this is only going to get more embarrassing for an egotistic, maniacal leader, because his own party is about to turn on him. Mark my words. The security of America is at threat because some idiot in a sandpit golf course has got his head buried so deep, thinking it'll all go away. But if you're stating today that you believe that Mr. Trump will be leading your country, I'm afraid all I can say is you have a delusional thought process. It's not happening. That's quite true. Most of the recounts that occur in an election where someone gets in, the person that just got in usually gets the better of the result in the recount. That is a very true statement. No, an opinion can be based on some facts. You have not presented any voter fraud. You've only repeated the word dominion because you've heard it on the media. You've stated that he will lead the party. So they're far more than opinions, they're statements. Free speech, you're welcome to it. And I'll always allow you that, no problem at all. But when it comes down to the line that you're supporting someone who is actually harming your country, and do you know what he's doing right now, Scarlett? I'm not sure if you've actually thrown in $500 or $1,000. He's asking for money, which is no longer going to be accountable for anything. It's just his money. Go look. Go to donaldtrump.com. Then come back to me and tell me I'm lying. He just wants your money. You've just made another statement. The voter fraud proof is all over the internet. You realise what you just said? Yep, the Supreme Court gave it to Bush. The only fault that old gringo that Al Gore made was he worked on specific counties within Florida, not the whole state, which later years on, Al Gore just said, possibly I should have asked for the full recount. No, there's not money being used. Who do you think's paying the legal litigations that are occurring all over the country? Who's paying for that, Scarlett? You're going to say, Trump's paying for that. You need to go and read up on who's paying for that. You are. Well, at this stage, I know over the last 6 days, 15 applications to state courts in regards to voter fraud have been thrown out, Scarlett. So he's 15, 0 for 15. And do you know what else, Scarlett? The Affordable Care Act. 5 Supreme Court judges have made their opinions known, and most of these are conservative Supreme Court judges. It's not going to happen. Oh, here we go. Haley McInerney showed 280 pages of sworn testimonies. All right, Scarlett, what was on them? What did you see in the fine print? This is the same press secretary that agreed with Mr. Trump that the virus is turning the corner. We're on top of it. And the scientific chief officer of the White House said Mr. Trump will be remembered for ending the virus. How's the virus going, Scarlett? Ended in America? Or do you count the 150,000 people that contracted the virus yesterday? Irrelevant. Now you're going to tell me all this is flu. Like I say, sadly, you are in the low 5% of people in America that will go to the wall for Mr. Trump, regardless if he shot someone. If he walked outside and shot someone, Scarlett, those 5% would say he was in self-defense. I saw it. I'm going to sign a sworn affidavit that Mr. Trump shot somebody in self-defense, even though that person was tied to a tree and couldn't move. Yep, no, well, the tree could have fallen on Mr. Trump. Let me explain to you what every judge has already said so far in the litigation, Scarlett. So you're very clear. Each state is different. But what happens is each judge has nearly made these laughable litigations. No evidence of voter fraud, hearsay, and when an attorney was pressed to confirm his statement that there'd been voter fraud, he backpedaled so fast knowing that if he did say it, and it proved incorrect, he would go to prison. That's right, Scarlett. That would be a felony by an attorney. They are backpedaling so fast. Even Ivana, who's looking after her own interests, and Jared Kushner, have basically said to Mr. Trump it's time to put up the white flag. Why would Kushner and Ivana Trump do that? Self-preservation for their own political ambitions. Pretty simple. Time has already told, Scarlett. Denying the truth puts you in the same bunker as Mr. Trump. He will drag everybody he can down with him and crush them, like the 240,000 dead Americans that he could have prevented a lot of deaths. And you know what? He's still President of the United States, Scarlett. 150 cases yesterday. What is he doing? Do you know the last time that Mike Pence and the committee met? October 6th. What's the date today, Scarlett? Presidents are declared by delegates, electoral delegates, in a full joint session of the House, Scarlett. I know that. I know quite a lot about how the political system works in America. They're declared. Normally by January 6th, I believe. That's the deadline on this year's election. I think he'll be leaving earlier, old Gringo, on the bequest of Republicans. That's the bit that's going to shock the remaining 5% like Scarlett. How dare the Republicans be involved with the removal of a stubborn ex-president? Well, it's in their interest to protect the GOP. I believe it's January 20th, but you could be right, Scarlett, because I'm in Australia, I'm a day ahead. But I believed it was January the 20th that inauguration day took place of 2021. But what I know, I'm just an Aussie. December 14th. Okay, irregardless, that's how it's done. Each state's delegate, electoral college votes gathered by a joint session of the House and agreed upon. Some can be some can be challenged. There have been in the past. Very few though. And Joe Biden will officially be, without question, President-elect of the United States. Well, knowing how paranoid he is, he could actually move to a different country before then. But mark my words, tonight I'm saying very clearly, the people that will remove Mr. Trump at the initiation of the GOP, the Republican Party, will remove Mr. Trump. And the 5% of people who follow blindly will be in tears, thinking that their own party has done this. Look, Scarlett, here's a point of conjecture for you. Scarlett Popperfield, Mr. Trump is President of the United States right now. Okay, I hope that eases some of the pain. However, he won't be your president in the future. Oh, I reckon she's got the wheels spinning on a moped already, old Gringo. She's heading to your place. She'll pack up her Gucci and clothing and have a double seat on the back of the moped for the pool boy, and off they'll go into the sunset. Is Mr. Biden going to be a perfect president? Probably not. Will he get a lot of his agenda put through? Probably not. But he should be a calming influence on a nation that people are dying every day unnecessarily. Yep, he'll get that done. I know who's delusional. It's a very flaky-skinned orange person in the White House. When his own daughter, Ivanka, and his chief advisor, Jared Kushner, have apparently said to him, it's time to let go. The reason why they've said that is that it preserves their future ambitions in politics. Go figure, eh? One Trump stabs the other one in the back. That seems to have been a pattern over the years. Yep, I heard them. I was there, Scarlett. I was sitting in the corner having a cocktail, dressed up as an Aussie with a Kruger hat on and some of those little bauble corks. And I said, "G'day, how you going, Jared?" He said, "Yeah, good, mate." And I said, "What do you think about Mr. Trump?" "Oh, he's got to go. Me and Ivanka have been talking. He's absolutely bonkers. He's got to go. And if he doesn't go, he's going to destroy any of our political ambitions for the future." I said, "No worries, Jared. See you, mate." See, that'll be on the internet tomorrow, Scarlett. And like when you come into the room, you'll say, "Man, I heard Seed say that he was with Jared Kushner and Ivanka, and apparently that happened." And that'll be all over the internet. I want to believe it. I won't, though. And I said it. Hello, Ashley. Americans need to come together and stop this nonsense and collectively allow the incoming administration the information they require to protect Americans. That's why. And like I say, you'll see, it'll be the GOP stand up and slap him on the arse and say it's got to stop. Why make such statements? I was showing you an example of propaganda, Scarlett, which you walked into this room with. No fact, no basis, hearsay. I heard it on the internet. Like I say, I hate to point to our country to show you the example, but we've got it under control. Why? Our states, each individual state and territory, which there are 7 of them, and the federal government, put in charge of the whole country chief medical officers. Each state and federal government did what the chief medical officer says. Now go and check our results. Do you know by this morning at 6 a.m. in the US, until about 11 a.m. in America, probably about 60,000 people will contract the virus. And probably about 900 people will die. That's only in 4 hours. That's our total for the complete virus for all of this time. That's an interesting one. I did see a very quick snippet of Karl Rove. He's a very smart man, don't get me wrong. Karl could pick out individual counties within electoral areas and tell you who's going to vote which way. He was that clever, Karl Rove. And he has stood up, Scarlett, and told Mr. Trump to step down and start the transfer of power. Karl Rove has said that. Yeah, he did, old Ringo. He's a very smart man, whether you agree with him or not, as a regardless. And he has stood up and said, Mr. Trump, it's time to go. You mark my words, within these 7 days, sitting senators of the Republican Party are going to stand up and say exactly the same thing. Never get an argument from me on that point. The election must be called and certified before any transfer. No, that's incorrect. Not that bit. The election must be certified, yep. But let me just tell you, transfer of power takes place and has always done. Give you an idea, Scarlett, Mr. Trump was in the White House about this time, 4 years ago, being shown around by Barack Obama. He was given all the details, security information, this time last year, 6 days after the election. Why would Obama do that? Well, it's constitutionally the right thing to do, because it means that the security of the nation can be smoothly transferred even though it's a new leader. Hello, Patty. So the transition of power needs to be undertaken during the transition period, which is basically the day after an election, if the incumbent loses. I'll give you, Scarlett, I'll get you to go and look on YouTube. I've seen it many times. I've always admired John McCain for different reasons. Doesn't make me a Republican, but I admired him. But his most poignant speech was held in Arizona at a gathering of thousands of people where he applauded Mr. Obama. He explained that everyone in this country, even though he didn't win, needs to get behind Barack Obama. He said things like in his speech about Obama's, this is just my memory, about Obama's grandmother sadly not being here today to witness her grandson win the presidential election. Now, not only was John McCain's speech gracious by a long way, but it was also paramount that he said to all the people that voted for him, do not turn against your new president, Mr. Obama, support him. If you want to see what someone does when they lose an election in the Republican Party, go look for John McCain's speech in Arizona when he conceded and also applauded a black man running America. So that's all you need to do to go and see how not only the transfer of power was continuous for Mr. Obama in that case, but the gracious speech of John McCain. And do you know what, Scarlett? The ghost of John McCain, along with his wife Cindy, gave the Arizona to the Democrats. And that was confirmed this morning. Confirmed. If you think of people that unite a country, someone who loses an election but gave a speech like that unifies the country. Not many people insulted John McCain, only one person in particular. There were rivals of John McCain within the Republican Party, but none made severe speeches like, "I don't like people who get caught." I guarantee it, old gringo, that they lost Arizona. And like Cindy McCain says, I'm a Republican, but don't vote for the Republican leader. I think one thing America needs to remember is that why your country was founded. It usually worked on the principle for many years that I looked at America with great respect, that it was all for one and one for all. And that literally has disappeared. The GOP, as I remember, does not exist. And the Democrat Party's probably gone way too left. They're my statements and my opinions. But in power at the moment is an absolute despot who's let many thousands of people die unnecessarily and is doing absolutely nothing as the numbers climb to nearly 200,000 infections a day. Nothing. That goes beyond embarrassment to negligence. And history will prove what I'm saying correct. John McCain could have left Vietnam, Scarlett. I'm not sure whether you know the facts or not, because these are recorded in the annals of Vietnam and their annals, not American annals. He refused to go, though his father was an admiral in the Navy. He refused to leave other people behind. He said, if they can't come with me, I'm not going. That cost him another 5 years in captivity. I call that patriotism. I think Melania's decorations this year, punk, will probably be a pool boy on the back of a moped with a wad full of cash heading for the Caribbean. No, there's nothing wrong with free speech, and insults may be perceived, but it's the indignation of your unacceptance of the fact that most Americans agree with me and other people that Joe Biden's the next president, irregardless of how many litigations, which are failing every day, Scarlett. I want you right now to go onto Google, go mad, and tell me where they won in a state where it's now been pushed through to the Supreme Court for judgment. Or you'll find, like I have found, everyone's been thrown out. Insulting the intelligence of judges, even at a lower court level, and even at a state Supreme Court level, is not being tolerated. Because the consensus was done, a poll, if you like, among Republican voters. 80% of Republican voters said, yep, we lost, we would need to move on. 20% said, no, we need to go through all this litigation first, which is failing every day. You do realise, Scarlett, that these litigations are on a state level, hoping to be pushed to a federal level. That's the process. That's the process of what's being undertaken with litigation. Let's say 2 of them get through the Supreme Court, which the Supreme Court may not even hear them actually. But if they did, and if some miracle, Mr. Trump won, say, Arizona and Georgia, it has no bearing on the election. Yep, I agree, old Ringer. I think John McCain's legacy for the Republican Party is a slap in the face for a dictator, and maybe a reminder to other Republicans that the core values of America exist. But do you understand, Scarlett? Only the case in hand that goes to the Supreme Court can be judged on by the Supreme Court. They can't say, well, we're in the Supreme Court for Georgia. How about all these other 5 or 6 states? The Supreme Court say no. You understand how that works, Scarlett? It'll be a specific point. It'll be a specific evidence presented in a specific state. So let's say they win Georgia. Doesn't change the outcome. I believe in Georgia they're allowed up to December 10th for a total hand recount. That must be driving people nuts. Think about it. I have no argument with you, Scarlett. I'm disappointed in your delusion when already there are 290 electoral college votes for Mr. Biden, which in the words of a great man once said, that's insurmountable. Can't be passed. And I laughed when I heard I think it was Kayleigh McEnany say, the media doesn't call elections. Well, they do. In the modern era of the last 30 years, the media have always called the election. In fact, in 2016, Scarlett, as soon as Mr. Trump was declared the winner in the 2016 election, declared by not only Fox, but NBC, ABC, he came to the mic straight away. So the media has called all modern elections for the last 30 years. Apparently this time, Mr. Trump says that's not fair. How dare Fox? He's very angry at Fox News, obviously. How dare Fox call the election for Mr. Biden? Fox News are in my pocket. Don't they know I'm the golden goose? Yep, a joint sitting of both houses through electoral college votes, delegates call who has won. That's always how it's been. However, that's what they call a formality. Scarlett, you understand what I'm saying? It's a formality. It's already been preordained before that date that the joint sitting of both houses declare, when they're certified in each state, they're final. When votes are certified in every individual state, the 50 states, they're final. All the delegates do is meet in a joint session to say, yeah, that's what happened. Actually, I heard on a different media outlet that the next appointment for Mr. Trump will be his own version of Fox News, Trump News, the Trump channel. I'm not kidding you, and I can see that being very much a possibility. However, I don't know how you'll be able to do the broadcast from the security section of a prison. Not sure that maybe, I don't know, maybe he'll build his own prison. No, Muhammad Ali was not the president. However, I did admire Muhammad Ali standing up for his beliefs. No, Muhammad Ali was indeed, even though the greatest boxer of all time, a pacifist. One of the greatest statements during that period, prior to being charged, was Muhammad Ali saying, I don't even get supported as a black man in my own country, yet you want me to go to another country and shoot yellow men. And I thought, how poignant was that statement? Scarlett, with respect, I don't think anyone feels threatened by your opinions, and based on information that you've delivered, no one feels threatened. But mark my words, you can come back in 7 days and say, you were wrong, Seeds. The Republican Party, the heart of the GOP will stand up. and end this nonsense, knowing it will become a national security risk. Mark my words. This election for me shows one thing: the conservative values of America still strongly exist, which is a good fundamental thing, for sure, because they're values. Republicans voting for the state selection and Senate selection tick the Republican box. Come the president, they tick the Biden box. And I repeat, you'll see history show what I'm saying. The Republican Party, people who supported it, rejected Mr. Trump. They removed Trump from office, not the Democrats. The people who wanted to keep core values of the Conservative Party alive without him as leader. You don't, like, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Gringo. You don't have to like who is running a country. You just need to know that the country's being run well. That's all. America has been run badly. I just don't get this thought process of American servicemen being treated as irrelevant. That is an insult to me. Every Australian who's gone to war supporting America, that insults me. Both my grandfathers fought. It insults me to think that they were considered irrelevant, losers and suckers. I think what it is, Mel, and I'll be honest with you, I think some of these die-hard supporters of Mr. Trump in the Republican Party, and you can name them, we all know who they are, there's probably 20 of them, they basically think that that Trumpism will flow with them after he's gone. I think their judgment is very poor. I think it will work against them. I think hell of him, she's entitled to her opinion, but some of it based on supporting someone no matter what they says is dangerous. That's my opinion. I think everyone has the right to believe what they want to believe, but not in fairyland. Anyway, like I say, within these next 7 days, the GOP will stand up and realise they have a commitment to the nation, and they need to move forward and say to Mr. Trump, it's over. That's what will happen. And I think you'll hear Mr. Trump say exactly what he said about Fox News. Some of the Republicans in my party are evil. He will blame, and if you haven't seen what I'm saying, Scarlett, he's blaming everyone else but himself. I said many, many months ago, Scarlett, we had this conversation, I do not care if it's a Republican Party or Democratic Party running your country. I care how your country's run. Well, Scarlett, I haven't eaten my words so far that Hillary Clinton wasn't the running against Mr. Trump. You may have conveniently forgot that's what you told me would definitely happen. And you said before the election all these reports would come out and crush Mr. Biden, like Hunter's report. That's sort of disappeared, Scarlett. So there are many barbs and arrows you can throw, but you never hit Hillary Clinton once. Oh, here we go. Tell me you read that on the internet. Do you know when, this is an analogy, Scarlett, don't take it personally, but you are like a drowning man. I'm not saying you're a man either. I'm using the metaphor. Who, when going down the whirlpool, knows certain doom is coming, will cling to anything. That's a metaphor. It's not meant to be taken literally. Well, yeah. In those countries, as we just noticed in Belarus, you can win 10% of the vote and still win and say you won 90%. I can hear that cat. What if it's meowing on the front porch? See, the statement that you just made, and I'm going to say it gently to you, and I'm not mean to offend you, is delusional. You are saying you have, I am so confident, which means you have all the information, factual information at your disposal. Not hearsay, not from the internet, but that statement collaborates that I am so confident Trump will remain president. Well, I can give you another statement. I am so confident legally Mr. Trump will be president until the 20th of January of next year, but he may be removed earlier. I would never mute anyone, Mel. Everyone's entitled to agree to disagree. That's my life policy. You don't have the research facilities at your disposal, Scarlett, on a national level to have any factual base in stating, I'm so confident. You don't. You're like me, you're just one person. You don't have the facilities. You certainly don't have the transfer of power to give you the security information you require. That will never happen to you or I. But you're just stating an opinion. There are no facts involved here. Like I say, without being mean at all, some of your research and some of the things you predicted before the election, that Biden, in fact, would never be in the ballot, was one of them. That wasn't anything to do with your statement that Hillary would be. It was the statement that he'll be in prison, locked up. You had the facts, you had the research, you know it's going to happen. So I've heard what you were saying before, Scarlett. That's better. It's your personal belief. That's a far better rationale and based on your opinion. I accept that, but I don't agree with it. There's nothing wrong in believing what you believe at all. Some people still believe in Santa. Though I don't think he's going to the White House this year. He's been fired. I believe, even though the channels of transfer of power normally give access, Gringo, to the president-elect are denied, I believe that Barack Obama's information of world leaders and his contacts have allowed Joe Biden to receive calls and interact with many world leaders. The only world leaders who haven't congratulated President-elect are Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, and Xi Jinping. Why? It's not in their interest to do so. Scarlett, if Santa comes down your chimney and has an orange complexion this year, pull out the 4440 and relieve everyone's misery. Mel B, I think you're talking about Australia. Well, you only got to look at Sky News Australia. Totally different than Sky News UK in how it's presented. Sky News Australia is like watching Rupert Murdoch stick his hand up the jacksie of most of the presenters speaking right-wing propaganda. It's so ridiculous. If you've watched Sky News Australia, it's absurd. So let's go in conjecture. What happened to Hunter Biden and the laptops and all that nonsense about getting millions from the mayor, the lady mayor in Moscow? Where's that gone? That was what you told me would end Joe Biden's campaign. What happened to that? You don't hear it anymore. Where'd it go? Did someone steal the laptops? It's the same in the US. Fox News, who's it owned by? Rupert Murdoch. Yeah, you look at them, there's a lot of, and it's not so much that they're left wing, they just don't give fair and balanced. Lots of the news outlets, Mel, I would agree with you. Some of them are very much left leaning, there's no question about it, but it's only countered by things like Fox News, which is extremely right wing. Media is something that you should peruse but not take to heart. It's not so much the truth that's being reported, just what's happened being reported and relayed in a way that is either left or right wing. That's it. Hello, Danny. I hope you're safe. We're worried about you today. No, it hasn't. Scarlett, you're only saying that because that's what Mr. Trump said. Fox News has not gone left. It's still owned by Rupert Murdoch. Fox News declared the election for Biden. That's why Mr. Trump says Fox News has gone left. And you've just repeated it in text, word for word. You sent Mystic a picture. All right. We'll get it to have a look at that shortly.
I am now.
That's very beautiful, Danny. It really is. All right, so Fox News is owned by Disney, so that means Mickey Mouse has turned right wing. I get it. There's lots of Australia and lots of America owned by different countries. China, Saudi Arabia. But let's get off the political subject. Enough said. Let's move down different lines like, what have you been doing today? What did you eat? What did we eat tonight? I made a pasta dish tonight. It was very nice. The cream sauce with bacon in there, Danny. They have bacon in the cream sauce. Big chunky garlic bread as well. Brilliant. Talking about food now, Scarlett. I'm not a dictator, but I can turn the talk tables in regards to what we discuss, and politics is now at an end. So yes, I had creamy pasta. I think it was a rigatoni type filled, which was like a pesto and cream cheese. Very nice. Hello, Mel. Hard working. Works hard, does Mel. She works on the gun tower at Fremantle Prison. She only shoots people she doesn't like. That, or she six wrecks onto them. Get 'em, Rex. I've great respect for Vietnam vets. They were very poorly treated in the 70s. But that's changed. People have realised what they did was exactly the same as diggers did before them. Mel just bought a new AK. I don't know if you can make a cake with an AK-47, but they were good. But we have had to put one in the freezer under threat of life for a particular person in the future. You don't have, I use short crust. You can use flaky pastry if you like, it's irrelevant. I had short crust pastry on hand, so that's what I used. Like a lot of people think in the US in particular, that Australians don't have any weapons. There are so many weapons in this country you wouldn't believe it. But most people that use weapons in this country shoot something
and then eat it. Yes, Mr. Gaines, we've been watching lots of magnet fishing. It's interesting, the young group of guys found a gun, called the police, and it could have been part of sort of a crime, but they also told these divers there are 30 or 40 spots that the police don't have time or the resources to dive on, and if they wish to and they found any more evidence, to provide it to them. I thought that was pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah, so magnet fishing is a very strong, good, long rope with a very heavy-duty, big magnet on it. They chuck it over the bridge or over the bank into the water and see what they get. It's funny and interesting.
If they take that big magnet to Georgia, they might find some missing ballots. I'm only kidding. Not talking about that anymore. Anyway, had to go and protect Poppy from getting ganged up. She's never been ganged up on. A difference of opinion is what we're allowed to do here. All right, Mel, have a good one. Thank you very much. I'm sure if you tasted it, you would. But the one thing in the US, you've got thousands of ways to die. You know, you can be shot, all sorts of things. I mean, in Australia, we generally die of old age. Bit boring, I suppose, but must be lots of bridges around where you are, Danny. It's pretty. What's a special magnet? What's it called?
It's just a super duper magnet.
There's a name for them. I know there is, but they're very powerful.
I didn't know there was a special name for it.
No, there are different types of magnets. What I'm saying.
Oh, they use different size magnets, and they're about, I don't know, you can tell them. The big one's about that thick to about that thick. Usually no rounder than that.
But it's the strength of the magnet.
That's right. Yeah, they're all different strengths.
A mate of mine had a magnet was only about 1.5 inches wide by about 1 inch thick. And you put it onto a metal frame. It's still there today.
It depends. I'm watching.
Couldn't get it off. It was like it was welded.
Watching a heap of different ones, Leroy. It depends where they fish to which magnet they're using. But these group of guys I watch, there's like 5 of them. But they all have their own channels, but they also get together, but they also do scuba diving. And they also recover cars. They do some work. The police have asked them to go recover cars. They pull cars out of certain rivers, and yeah, there's 5 or 6 guys. Like I said, different channels, but they do get together and do everything together. Magnet fishing, scuba
Have a great
diving,
day, Ashley.
recover cars.
I used to dive and look for certain spots, and I always picked up heaps of lures on a particular reef where people didn't know what they were doing. They'd lose all these lures. I ended up with about 300 or 400 lures.
Oh, one time when they were
And
doing...
I sold them, made money.
Yeah, when they were doing their scuba diving series, which they do different ones every week. My God, they found hundreds, and that's what they do. And they do clean up, like whatever they pull out of the river or find when they also do metal detecting, they take all the rubbish, whatever they find and collect, they get rid of it to the tip. They find guns, they ring the police. They found a stash of drugs once. They found, I've got some of the things, someone's ashes, someone had thrown the box and all in the river.
We used to use a smaller version of the magnets, and in all the laundry sections when they built the prison, they had double brick. It was for security, but they had a cavity between the brick. And I, over the years, found dozens of tattoo guns. But how to find them, you just swing the magnet backwards and forwards, and you click, pull it up.
Seds can answer that one, Gringo.
Well, they don't. Australians mainly, because we're surrounded by the ocean, Gringo. 99% fish from the ocean,
Oh.
but we get trout. There's plenty of trout in Australia.
Oh, is that the name of the magnet, Leroy? I thought you were telling me a name of a YouTube channel. I think
I want you to pronounce what Leroy put in there.
I'm not even going to try.
I want you to do it. I want you just
No.
to try.
Leroy, please put it phonetically. Please put it so I can pronounce it.
Well, the first part's Neo, okay.
Now, dim dum.
That'll do. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Angels. Neo Dim Dum, apparently. Yeah, there's trout down where we live, just not far from here, but our ocean has just so much to offer anyway.
See, Ashley.
We've got plenty of what you call crawfish, natural ones. They're called yabbies here. And we've got big marron, they're like an inland freshwater lobster. Lots of stuff, but like I say, most people will catch something from the ocean. I wish I had a camera like I've got today, back 40 years ago. I would have shown you what was normal for me. It would have been staggering for you to watch.
Why is the camera a bit blurry? Move your papers for me.
I don't know, is that better?
Yeah, a bit better.
Yabbies, they're like crawfish. We've got several varieties of them. I used to catch them, but I used to purge them in a little pond for about 3 days, feed them fresh grass and wheat. So you clean out their crap line. Used to work a treat. They're about, 3-4 inches long. Quite thick. Get a big feed out of them, but you don't want to eat them fresh. Muddy, not good. A lot of the foods in supermarkets all over the world is the same. There's a lot of farmed fish, mainly from Southeast Asia. It's where lots of it comes from. Lots of the shrimp, or we call them prawns, you get in the US, come from Thailand farms, Vietnam farms. I used to love going to the estuary, a river, where I used to live, and it would break through into the ocean 3 or 4 times a year. As soon as it broke through, you had all these prawns, or shrimp as you call them, and you could have buckets of them. Only for a few weeks of the year though. Hello, Harvey. But we've been a few places around the world, and a lot of the fish you see is imported fish. It's not local fish.
Geez, that's a lot of hearts. Gringo, you going? Is that all those hearts for me and Danny?
I think you just had an emoji attack.
Okay. See you, Danny.
At the end of the summer, we'll take you fishing.
There is a bacon shortage in UK, Danny says.
Oh my God. That's the end of the world. That's worse than the virus.
Just remember, Gringo, mine's chocolate, Danny's is bacon.
No shortage of bacon here. In fact, we had some in our pasta tonight. Streaky bacon, fried. Not completely crispy because it's going in pasta, but definitely delicious. My work is done. I have to go and eat bacon. I hear there's a bacon shortage. Not sure. There's plenty of pigs in the UK.
Oh, there you go. Harvey's in the UK, aren't you, Harvey? Is there a bacon shortage?
Well, that's if Harvey can get out of house.
Oh, thanks. I got the chocolate.
Most people are under a lockdown or curfew in the UK at the moment. But it works, Harvey. In Victoria, they had over 700 cases a day, 6-7 weeks ago. Everyone locked down, everyone got paid, masks were mandatory, and now there are 0 cases in Victoria. It works. It's a pain in the ass, but everyone's got to do it at the same time. I think if people realised that if the planet was being threatened, and it is, that we don't work against each other, we work with each other. That's how it works. It won't work any other way. I will not listen to anyone say it impedes my liberty and freedom to wear a mask. Really? Just wear the damn mask. We're watching a modern tragedy, there's no doubt about it, that historians will write about for hundreds of years.
And there'll be another one again,
There will.
70 to 100 years.
But if we've
Or
learnt
maybe
anything
50.
from the Spanish flu, we didn't implement it. We have modern technology on our side this time, which has saved millions of lives.
They got pretty strict during the Spanish flu, just in a different way because they didn't have what we have.
Well,
They
the
just
point
did it
is
different.
we are not invulnerable. And holding an AR-15 up in the air, not wearing a mask, demanding your liberty and freedoms are going to be protected, and then dying of a virus that you could have prevented is irony at its peak. Good. It works, Harvey. It is a pain in the ass. If anyone said, would you like wearing a mask? I'd say, not really, but I will.
I was going to go back to watching my videos.
Yeah, I remember that. That was, I remember that old gringo. There's nothing wrong in making a mistake or having a belief that's wrong, but to continue it is stupidity. All the cases we get in Australia are returning Australians from overseas. They're put immediately into quarantine in the Northern Territory, which is way up north and very hot. And they're kept there for the 14 days. They're tested twice. If they come out clear, they go back to their own state. We haven't had a local transmission. You said it the other day, something like
Oh,
200 days. April was our last local transmission.
okay, hang on. I'll
You
get
said that before, Leah, Aquachica. I remember that.
Aqua. I'm going to go look at that now.
Going to get some tucker. You're nearly Australian there, Harvey.
Aqua.
At this time in the morning, it'll be eggs,
There you go.
toast, baked beans, bacon or sausages.
Right, got it.
Yeah. What you will find, old gringo, when implemented mandatory mask wearing where states refuse to do it, the death toll will be higher. It'll be the obvious will stand out. The dad was from Brizzy. Right. Siege, did you get my text? If I did, I might have missed it because I'm on a hangout biker.
No, your phone, normal text.
Well, I don't get them when I've got a live going.
Oh.
I don't get
No,
text
I think
showed.
Nobody's talking about the other day.
No, you're saying a text.
Oh,
So I'll read it later, mate, but I don't get it when I'm doing a live.
I will go.
But if it's to do with the occurrence of a bitterness between two people, it's got to stop. It's as simple as that, biking. When people don't know each other, live 25,000 kilometres away from each other, there is no Barney. It's mere texting and disapproval of each other. It's not relevant.
Oh, it was days ago. Yeah, you got that one. He did. You did.
I can't recall if I did. And if anyone comes in the room and starts a Barney, I will just delete them. I'm not interested in fighting. I'm interested in discussion. But there are plenty of other rooms on the bottom of YouTube you can go to and have a good old fight. A real curly. Moreton Bay, yeah, in Victoria. That's where the Moreton Bay bugs come from. They're like little squashed up crayfish, Harvey. See you later, biker. But I did say months ago this virus was going nowhere. We can make it go away or not, but it doesn't want to go anywhere. Mud bugs. Yeah, I've heard that name being used here as well. But you got to purge them in fresh water, feed them grass and wheat. That cleans out their innards. If you don't, you cook them up the same night you caught them. Crunchy, crunchy. It's good to catch something from the wild and eat it. It's a sense of like your primordial sense. Hunter-gatherer.
I'm going to go watch some of these.
It's funny, we had a break in the weather, Harvey. It jumped from about 20 degrees Celsius to about 40, what it does here. And all the rain had been the week before, and millions of flies. And then the cool weather's come back in again, and they're gone. We don't get many flies where we live, but it's the same as like cabbage moths. After the big rains and it gets warm, they just come out in their thousands. Yeah, flies just breed so quickly. Oh, Gringo, I don't know what the lifespan of a fly is, but I'm guessing it's only a week or two. They've got to do their business real fast. Cabbage moths seem pretty flying through the air, and until you go to your garden a week later and see all the green grubs, the larvae of the moth, and they're just eating everything. But I treat them with the respect they need. I make my homemade chili and garlic pesticide, and they hate it, which is a good deal. I'm already pulling tomatoes off my bushes and chilies. Did you go and pick those blueberries?
I ate them.
There was about a dozen or so I saw.
Oh no, not all of them already. I
Oh,
think
right,
one was
okay.
a bit too sour.
It'll be good in a few years when they're bigger bushes. You'll have bigger crop.
I'm going to go watch some of these videos.
Yep, I think we'll toodle off. It's, what is the time here? About 9:20 where we are. If you're just starting your day, enjoy it. If you're in a lockdown like Harvey, just purse your lips together and realise it won't last forever. Be inventive, talk to people on the internet, maybe write or paint, or sculpt something that will go in the British Museum after you've finished. Just remember, hard times will always be with us in one form or another, either personally or in this case worldwide. We can get through this if we do this together. Fighting each other over things like, oh, it's impeding me and it's not right, is irrelevant. It is real. It is causing the death of millions of people. And if we don't take it seriously, it will take us. So from Mr. Gangel, she will say adieu. No, she won't say adieu because she'll probably say adieu.
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 And for the rest of you, from me, the big ugly old bugger,
Squash.
have a good day.
Seed squash.
Whatever you can do, at least smile some part of this day. Enjoy, grin, laugh, eat something good.